Minutes are approved. Ah,
Sorry about that.
okay. I just want to say that the minutes of January 4th were approved with one abstention, Rosemary. Okay, so we have that on the recording. Right, chairperson's report. First, I want to share the date again, Tuesday, February 7th, to join us at Yucca for a toast to Kira. It's Cash Bar. We'll be starting at 6:30 and hope that we can have fun, we can mingle.
Guess it's not a surprise party.
Nope. It's not. Oh, I see Lisa has joined us. Hello, Lisa. We have a new captain at the 5-0, Captain Soar. We're setting up a meeting with myself and Ed to introduce and speak about the board and our issues, and look forward to working with her.
Do you have any info on her? Where she's from? Was she the XO?
No, I don't have that information tonight. But we will be hearing her resume, I'm sure. We will be voting to go into executive session tonight to discuss our staff personnel and the hiring of a new community coordinator. And that'll be later on. Our February meeting will begin at 6:30 to have our customary public budget hearing. Let's see, and last announcement, we will go into executive session to update the full board on the potential new office space, as well as the personnel issues, and that will be at the full board. Okay, let's see. I sent a note around regarding the district manager search, so that is underway. Whoever that person is will have big shoes to fill. The community coordinator position, we will be discussing later on in executive session. And let's see, we will, and that's my my report. Moving on to the treasurer's report.
I have a hand.
Oh, I didn't see a hand. Hold on. Let me just.
Sorry, I think maybe it shows up on the white part of my wall and doesn't show up very well.
Rosemary. No, I see.
Yeah. So on the district manager's search, I did see your email that you appointed a search committee.
Yes.
But do we have any more details on the process that is envisioned to do that search?
Well, the posting has been updated. It's been sent to the borough president's office for approval. It hasn't been posted yet, but it should be anytime now. We will collect resumes. We will sift through resumes. We will conduct interviews, and we will conduct second interviews. And then we will collaborate and bring forth a recommendation.
Okay, if I could just a couple of comments or suggestions,
Of course.
You know, we hear all the time that the community board is, we're just give recommendations. That's all we do. The one place we have power is in hiring a district manager. It really is one of the more serious things that we have, and we have total control over it. We really do. Where it gets advertised, where that job gets advertised, I think is important to bring in the widest variety of people, good people, because I know everybody wants the best district manager. Kira's Gannon shoes are big to fill, but we should be shooting for the best candidate. The last time around, there were we tortured over where one would advertise, you know, like the Riverdale Press, it's too limiting. I mean, you do it, but there should be papers of wider circulation. I remember Paul Ellis did a tremendous research into city and state which is one of these news things that a lot of people who are interested in government follow. And they actually have a Saturday listing of jobs. We got years ago a lot of good resumes just from the city and state posting. So I just my comment is just doing it on that city site. I would strongly suggest that there be a larger outreach and advertising to get more candidates.
No,
in.
agree. For the community
Okay.
coordinator position, we advertised in city and state. And we advertised it widely in newspapers. And the new city website, which is a career website, is amazing because everybody goes to it. It's a centralized, it's something new. Community boards didn't have that years ago. Resumes are not sent to the office anymore. It's a different system and you attract a lot of people, but we did use city and state and other newspapers for the community coordinator, and we're certainly going to do that with the district manager.
That's great. I'm sorry. The only thing I heard you say was the city site. That's why I was raising it.
No,
as
you
a
know what?
suggestion. So that's
I
good
ha-
thinking.
I have a spiel written here and I had that
Mhm.
down, but half the time I don't say what I have written down and it's just,
Mhm.
that's the story. Yeah, no, lots of different newspapers, different websites. We sent it to the community coordinator to our own board members and asked them to distribute to their
Yeah,
networks.
absolutely.
We put it on
Absolutely.
websites.
Good.
We will continue. We will do that.
And the timing for it, it does, that's have there been a set date? You're gonna do advertising
It
over
hasn't-
2 months? You haven't set the
I would say
timing
6 weeks to 2 months.
for advertising and then do interviewing? That's, I'm
Yes.
just trying to get a time. Okay.
Okay, David, your hand is up.
But
Yes.
I have one last thing, 3 points on it. It was, not that it was difficult, it's doable, but it's something that the search committee has to be aware of. All of their meetings are subject to the open meetings law. So that advertising meetings of the search committee as they go over resumes and stuff, we still have 2 people on the community board that were on that the Getting Care Again and search committee. Diamaris has left the board, but Marty Wolpoff and Dan were on it, and maybe they could be helpful to this search committee. How did they schedule open meetings? How do they advertise them? How did they do it? How do they go into exec? I mean, you know, it could be a headache. It's just an added burden on the search committee. And I just offered that as a suggestion to be helpful to the search committee now.
Yes.
Thank you.
I actually, thanks, Rosemary. I actually did chat with Marty for a few minutes about this, and he has been very helpful. Of course, he said, "Thank God I'm not on yours." I'm not on yours. And I said, "No, I'm just calling to chat about it." So, David, and then Marty, is your hand up? Okay, but David, next.
Yeah, I know I sent out the new email address just Monday, but I didn't get any message about a search committee to either my old or new address. Who's on this committee?
Oh, you didn't get that letter?
No,
Bob
just said,
Bender, I've asked him to chair it, Omar Murray and Julie Reyes.
okay.
That's odd because I received it, Laura.
I got it also, yeah.
And
Okay.
I'm usually
don't know, maybe it
excluded
was
from
a
everything,
snafu.
so yeah, if I got it.
All right, thank you for the information.
Okay. Marty, was your hand up?
Yeah, just on, just on a note that Rosemary hinted on. The open meetings law, we were affected by it, obviously, is that we had a procedure by which we numbered the resumes. So when we spoke about it at public meetings, we only spoke about the number 3, number 7, number 12, without referring to anybody's names.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. I'm just seeing something, I'm just going back to what we did before about where we advertise in city and state, Riverdale Press, Norwood News, LinkedIn has an issue as well. Okay, just a little update. It'll be well advertised. So, Bob, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Marty. And Marty, you can be sure I will be in touch with you about this, because as I was hearing that this is an open meeting, I also see the pitfalls here, because we're going to be interviewing people who are currently holding jobs. And obviously, we need to preserve their privacy on the one hand, while on the other, complying with all the necessary requirements. So you can be sure that when we get to the point where we're ready to start conducting interviews, Marty, you're going to hear from me. But thanks for what you just said for some guidance. And yes, there's no escaping it, Marty. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I look forward to hearing from you on this or other things also. Thank you.
Okay, so, Kira? No, treasurer's report. Okay, moving on to the treasurer's report, Scott.
Yes, thanks, Laura. So included with the materials was the treasurer's report for February, as well as the proposed budget modification. Why don't we start with the treasurer's report? Okay, it's on the screen. Great. Table 1 reflects personal services with an update of the salaries paid. As you can see, we have a remaining balance from now until the end of June of $115,292. And I know we're hiring a new community coordinator, but Kira, I think, is off the books as of today. So we're in good shape for the rest of the fiscal year there. Also reflected there in OTPS is a remaining balance of $29,717, which is broken down into a little bit more detail in table 1.1. Not much has changed from last month. We paid some cleaning bills. Our OMB report was updated to remove that $2,500 contribution that was erroneously included from Councilperson Sanchez's office. So now our OC 499, which is our general cushion code, is at $22,571, but that's pending the proposed budget modification that I'm going to get into in a moment. Section 1.2 is the budget modification, but why don't we briefly skip over that and we'll come back to it. We'll talk about 1.3 now. You may recall there were some recurring encumbered funds that showed up on prior reports. Encumbered funds, again, are items that may have been purchased and input into the system, but we're awaiting final payment. Kira did some investigations and discussions with FISA about this. It was determined that a number of these entries were rollover encumbrances from prior years, such as purchase orders that were created, never finalized, or they were just merely duplicate entries. So all these were cleared up, and it actually ended up putting money back into our budget in various object codes. So as you can see now, we only have 796 showing up as encumbered, whereas I think last month it was around 3,000. So it was good that Kira cleared that up. And finally, 1.4 rent and energy detail. It's not something that we have control over, but we like to keep it here to monitor it for reference. So let's go back to the table 1.2, the budget modification. Kira, do you have the budget? Okay, there it is. This is the proposal. Gonna go. I work with Kira, who obviously is most keenly aware of the operational needs of our office. And just quickly, let's go line by line into what we're doing here. Line 1, object code 100, supplies and materials. We like to have money in that object code. Right now, there's only $33 remaining. So the proposed modification is adding $3,000 from other object codes, resulting in a remaining balance of $3,033. Printing changes, no modification there. Postage. Our original budget for postage was $500, and this whole year we haven't spent a dime on postage. So the proposal is to take $250 away from that and put it elsewhere, leaving us with the remaining $250 for postage. Telecommunications equipment, we only have $19 remaining. We don't anticipate spending anything on telecommunications equipment, so we'll subtract that and put it into other object codes. Same deal with office furniture. We have around $1,429 remaining in that category, and there's no anticipation for the remainder of the year that we're going to buy any more office furniture. So we're going to take that out, the $1,428, and put it elsewhere. The next two object codes are office equipment and security equipment. This is where we're putting money. $1,000 into office equipment to cover anything that may arise from now until the end of June. So security equipment, we're adding $2,900. That's going to fund a proposed intercom system and doorbell. The system that we plan on installing would be a doorbell and a camera outside the front entrance. It'll have a screen in the conference room and another screen in the main office to buzz the door open and to speak to whoever rings the bell. This will help with security for meetings when the staff is alone in the office. Our existing antiquated system was actually damaged in last year's flood, so we really need to replace that. So we got an estimate from a vendor called Accelerated Technologies. I think the estimate was around $2,774. So we're proposing to put $2,900 in just to make sure it's sufficient to cover that expense. Heading back to the breakdown here, we're going to add $400. We're just talking about advertising. We're going to add $400 to advertising. The original budget was $250, and after adding $400, we're going to have $624 remaining for the advertising of the DM position. And finally, you'll see that we're using budget code 499 to cover the bulk of these changes. This is our general cushion that we usually maintain. Again, we have $22,571. It's proposed that we remove a little over $5,600, leaving us with around $16,968 remaining. So it's still a good cushion in 499. And this proposal, of course, is included in the accompanying resolution that we plan on presenting to the full board. And that's my report for the month.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Are there any comments?
Camelia.
I see Camelia and Rosemary.
Yes,
Camelia.
yes, thanks, Scott. I think I'm directing it to Laura, actually. So Laura, given that you mentioned sort of 6 to 8 weeks as far as recruitment of the next DM, how to say, is Pablo currently trained, or do you have the access to this financial information so that the regular monthly reporting of the treasurer will be possible? Is Pablo, are Pablo and you sort of plugged into the system so that Scott will be able to report to us?
Well, Kira will still be available to us as leader of all the Bronx community boards. So until a district manager is hired, and that's hard to know. I think the last DM search was a year. This will not be a year, hopefully, but we will be leaning on Kira.
Yeah, but so she will be like a volunteer worker.
Not a
of
volunteer
CBL?
exactly, because in the absence of our district manager, she will be acting as such. There are 2 other community boards that do not have district managers currently, and she's going to do the same for them. I shouldn't be speaking for Kira. Maybe you want to.
Yeah, I just,
Go ahead. Sorry.
Right now, in Tanya's absence, FMS needs 3 people. So in order to pay a bill, you need 3 people. In Tanya's absence, the borough president's office fiscal department is actually inputting our bills for us anyway. So now Pablo will be one of the approvers, and someone else from the fiscal department of the borough president's office will be also approving. So the deal is Pablo will send bills into us, and I will help manage from that. And I won't be the one approving it per se, but I'll be making sure that that's being done in a timely fashion. And then when it comes to requesting the OMB report monthly, Pablo knows how to do that, and we'll send it to Scott. And Scott knows I'm available to help him with any questions or anything like that. But this is why over the past few weeks, I've been updating the report as much as possible, clearing out any questions that we had, paying our bills up to date, so that we don't come into any delay. So I think it'll work out fine. And this is something that the borough president's office does for every community board when staff's missing.
Okay, got it. So, but basically, when it comes down to the office level, you feel confident that Pablo will have sufficient information to be able to provide to Scott for Scott to be able to basically do his job and update the board.
Yes, but I just want to
Okay.
be clear that, one part of it is getting the bills, right? For instance, our cleaning bills are pretty consistent. We get them every 2 or 3 weeks. He will be sending that to the borough president's office, as we've been doing for inputting. And then the second thing is simply just reaching out to the Office of Management and Budget, asking for an updated treasurer's report. And he just forwards that to Scott. So
I
Pablo
see, I
really
see.
doesn't have much to do. Like, the report is His
there
provider.
at OMB.
That's
I
just
understand.
for the
Okay, and you
information.
mentioned 3 people. So one will be you, one will be Pablo, and a third person in the
No, it
fiscal.
won't be.
Oh,
it
you
won't-
sorry, you said you won't be one. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you said Pablo, a person in finance and Bronx BP, and who is the third?
Another person in the fiscal department.
I
at the
see 2 people at the BP office and Pablo. Got it.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
thank
needs
you,
to be
Kira.
3 separate city employees because you kind of need to check the bill, you're checking each other, like a checks
Right,
and
right.
balances kind of thing. So,
And when we'll get the new community coordinator on board, he will become a second person.
he will become or she will become the inputter.
Yeah.
They have to obviously go through training and there's some hand holding in the beginning, but you do get the hang of it. And then lastly, when a new DM comes online, they will be the final approver.
Okay, so it will remain 2 people in the office, DM, community coordinator, 1 person in finance and Bronx BP.
No, and Pablo's involved. Pablo.
Oh, so it will be 3 people.
Pablo has always had a role.
Yeah.
I see.
Pablo's
Okay,
an
okay,
approver.
got
Pablo
it.
has always had a specific role, and he will continue with that role.
Mhm.
So when fully staffed, all 3 approvals are in the office.
Yeah.
Will be
Got it.
a
Okay,
well-greased
thank you.
machine.
Thank
Mhm.
you, thank you. Just wanted to understand. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Camille. Rosemary,
You're muted, Ms. Rosemary.
unmute. You're muted.
There you go. Apologies. So on the sheet, the largest dollar amount, Scott, is it the 16,000, whatever that is?
Yeah,
You referred to it as that's our cushion. We keep the money there. Does that mean it's a place where you put the money aside, or is it programmed? How much of that is programmed into the future? Do you understand my question? You do. How much of this?
Well, as I understand it, historically, as a community board 8, we like to keep an object code with a certain cushion. That's why I called it that. That's what I was.
Right,
And so
yeah.
I don't know what you mean by programs. I'm not sure.
that there are claims on that money. There are plans.
Right.
If there are there plans for that money now? If there are, what is planned to be spent?
Currently, no,
really-
I understand that we have some flexibility with that object code. Kira can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what my understanding of
Yeah.
object code. Okay, go ahead.
Sure. There's no plans right now. So as
Okay.
I advise Scott and the officers, somewhat, sometime in April or so, there will need to be another budget modification because you'll need to spend that $16,000, and whether it's on this new housing guide, whether it's, the board can kind of come together and figure that out.
Mhm.
But as you know, Rosemary, we've always kind of kept 20,000 about as a cushion for our potential move or furniture or emergencies. But towards the end of the fiscal year, you want to spend that money. So there'll have to be another budget mod at that.
No, thank you. I just want to know if, to the extent you had specific plans for that money now, I'd like to hear them. That really is my question. Okay, and you don't, right? So, okay, thank you. Thank you, Scott.
Sylvia,
You're muted, Sylvia.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I'm a bookkeeper at profession, so it kind of interests me as to the remaining amounts don't really are not recognized as a budget mod or a final budget. As an example, the Do-It phone expenses. They had originally 2570. They have a final budget of 2570, and then remaining is 927. How did that happen?
I can answer that. Every year, Do-It gives us an amount of money to put into that line. It's an interagency line. So each city agency or community board puts in what they ask, and that pays for our phone bill. And they take it as they please. We have nothing to do with that, just other than in the beginning of the year, put it in that line for them. And they haven't taken $1 all year. This is actually
This
the
quarter.
first withdrawal they've made. And that's just how it works.
And as far as the printing supplies, there's only a remaining amount of 387, but there's $1,000 in the final budget.
Well, the budget was 1,000. And the
Yeah,
remaining
yeah.
1,000, we spent 600 something of that. And that the remaining actual unliquidated, remaining balance is
And what do you mean like for ink, printing supplies or?
Yeah, that's ink, printers, printing could be ordering envelopes, I'm just giving examples, but this year it's primarily been ink and like toner and things like that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other hands, thank you so much, Scott. Thank you, and Kira. We'll move on to the DM's report. Before I do that, I just want to say that I'm just busting with happiness for Kira and pride that she's going to be the next Tom Lucania. Many of us know who Tom is because he's been an institution for many, many years to community boards as the liaison to all the Bronx boards. So, you know, I think that it's a wonderful and exciting opportunity for Kira. At the same time, when I got the news, I burst down in tears and she had to bring me water. So it's very bittersweet. I'm gonna, I'm glad that she's close still and available to us. And I know she'll be busy because she'll have 12 boards that she's working with, but we're special. We're first. So, Kira, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, thank you. I started today at the borough president's office and, didn't really get a minute. It's very busy over there. But I just wanted to thank you all 5 years ago to be district manager after a few years of turnover. I'm happy, I think I did a good job. I'm going to take what I've learned and bring it over to the borough president's office. As I mentioned today, we're always considered the gold star of community boards, which I think is great. So I just want to thank you all. 5 years ago, Rosemary, you were chair. The search committee gave me an opportunity that I just couldn't appreciate more. And Laura, it's been a pleasure working with you over the past few years. And the officers as a whole. So thank you very much. And like I said, I'm not going very far. I'll be available always to work with Community Board 8. You guys will have a soft spot in my heart. So thank you very much.
And also, Kira, if anybody has any questions because they're going through the reappointment.
Yes, I
process.
also, I want to just mention that because I learned more about that today. The reappointment and new member application is open. It's electronic this year. It is the same link serves for both applications. There's just a click whether you're a current member or you want to be a new member. And while it's electronic, you need to upload an ID, a biography, and a bill for a proof of residence, and it will no longer require you to get a notary. But what I wanted to say is, after looking through some of the applications today, I know it is an onerous process. So I want to offer the CB8 office, Pablo will be able to make copies and scan this stuff into you and for you. So feel free to reach out, schedule an appointment with him, and he can kind of walk you through that process. And I'll make sure he sends something out to the board because it's good for the entire membership to know. And again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. I will also note that in a conversation with the borough president today, she mentioned that her office will be re-interviewing everybody, even if you are just reappointing, applying for reappointment. They'll be setting up a phone interview or a Zoom interview with everybody.
That's new.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Any other?
Yes.
I see hands. I see Deb and then Rosemary. Deb.
Kira, I wanted to ask you about term limits for the community board members and if the borough president's office, I know it's not this cycle, but it's kind of in another kind of 2-year cycle. If they're starting to prepare in terms of because a lot of people are going to go off, what kind of preparations or how they're approaching it.
I think they are taking that into consideration when appointing new people. I can get more info on that, Deb, on what exactly is being done, but I don't even know if they know yet. But they are really focusing on youth. We have Leona Tatton, one of the youngest, or if the youngest board member, and the borough president is really focusing on doing outreach with youth and high schools and even colleges. So that's kind of their big push this year.
Okay, that's great. I mean, I would suggest that like we don't have our maximum number of 50 people. And so it might be a time to start kind of loading up the board more so that so that people have experience as people start to term limit out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
You
I
know-
And
calculated,
good luck.
You know,
Thank you.
I had a conversation with Eric about this. I've spoken to chairs of other boards. We have 39 members, but we always do lose some mid-year. And while 50 may be a lot, we do need to have more members because some of our committees are quite small. And I have expressed this to Eric, and I will express it to the borough president's office as well, that we get maybe 4 or 5 new members a year, but we lose many more. And so we just need more. And then there are some members who, for personal reasons, stop attending, for one reason or another. So they're missing from quorums and committees. So I do think they need to bring on more, because I know many people apply, but only, a small number get on. So of course, we'll see what happens, because we really need more board members. So I agree. Rosemary and then David.
It's interesting. It actually is a mathematical thing. It's not just the borough president fills up to 50. The law says 50% of the members have to come from council members, and we have 3 council members. So it's more of a complicated, each council member,
Right.
how many members, I mean, it's not just the Vanessa filling up to 50.
Understood,
Yeah,
Rosemary.
yeah.
Definitely. Yes.
So my Kara, just very quickly in the documents for the new, I wouldn't have raised this except it got raised here. It says we have to sign the EEO document, I remember from years past, and number 2, do the sexual harassment training. So one question, where are we going to sign that thing? And number 2, the last time we went through the training, does that training cover this application, or is there going to be a new one that we're going to have to do before March 3rd? That's my.
Yeah, I don't have. I could be wrong on this, Rosemary, but I think you just have to sign and agree that you're going to take the training when it comes out. I could be wrong, but the staff has to take the training before March, so they're not going to be able to get the board members all to take it as well in the next month. So I think it's just an agreement that if you're a board member, you have taken it and you will continue to take it year after year when it's offered. Like an attestation, but I'll get more info on that.
It was a bit confusing in the application, so thank you.
Okay.
David?
Yes, just a point of information on Deb's question. We don't hit the wall on term limits for another 4 years. That's the earliest.
Right, 27, 28.
Right, 2 terms.
Right. But I know that some people are not reapplying who are currently members. I know we're going to be losing members. Yeah.
But that's not term limits. Term limits are when we have to leave.
Right.
That's not for 4 years.
Right. I think 27 and 28, like I said, 20, 27, half, it's juggles. Sylvia and Camelia? Thank you.
Kara, I'm a little confused as to signing the EEO or the agreement to take the sexual harassment thing. How do we sign those on the computer?
I'm not sure. I think it's an e-signature, but I can check and get back to you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they've always had that, but I always used to do it by
Well,
paper.
I've never done it before, so I
every-
wouldn't know how
every-
to go about it. I don't
Right.
have a signature out there.
Camelia?
Sylvia, it's probably just like clicking a box that, you know, I accept or whatever.
Yeah.
But just wanted to add, Laura, I think the point that Deb raised is super important, even with David disclaimer that it's still 4 years away. I think it's tremendously important for all committees to, how to say, take this responsibility of thinking about the future. There are several committees that have chairs in place. As you know, there are no limits on the number of years a chair can be a chair of a committee. We have this unwritten rule about the chair of the board for 3 years. I don't know why is it unwritten. Maybe it should be written. So then you end up in situations when chairs of the board change every 3 years by tradition, but there are committees with chairs that have been there for many years. And it's a little bit of a shock to the system that they will stop. So I think it's very important to underline in this context of the exec, when the nominating committee will be formed, for people to keep in mind sort of preparation for the future. Because if a person has been there for a decade, there will be nobody if we don't prepare nobody. You see what I'm saying? To have a number 2 kind of in the pipeline and to keep recruiting new people and bring new energy. Because again, we don't want to hit a wall. We kind of want to be prepared, and there are committees that do work of high level of responsibility, as we all know, and we all know that there have been people that were there for a very long time, and there will come this time, like we cannot deny the clock and the passage of time. So just wanted to put it out there for you to have it kind of in the back of your mind, because 4 years are passing quickly. Just wanted to
Absolutely.
say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to committee resolutions. We'll start that. We have several resolutions for tonight. Okay,
This is TNT.
yes.
Hi,
Okay, so a little bit,
I'm here.
you could basically see almost all of it. Okay,
Kira, can you scroll down a little more? That's perfect. Thank you.
okay, Kelly, you're on.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Happy February. Nice to see everyone's smiling faces. During the last TNT meeting, the only resolution that we have to come before the executive committee is the resolution to renew of no objection to the renewal of the application of All Town Limo Corp. As many are aware, All Town is on 231st Street. They not only provide regular taxi service, they also provide service to individuals to go to medical appointments. The committee met with the owner, Mr. Rodriguez. He explained the process to us, the process of their operation, that is, and the committee unanimously approved the resolution that you see before you. Without reading the preamble, I will just read the resolution. It says, therefore be it resolved that Bronx Board 8 has no objection to the renewal of delivery car-based license for All Town Limo Corp. located at 206 West 231 Street, Bronx, New York 10463.
Okay, any questions, discussion? Thank you, Kelly. This is pretty much a pro forma situation. We've had this several times in the past. Okay, seeing no hands. We'll go on to public safety. Ed,
Okay, so Public Safety Committee, we have 3 resolutions. They are all renewal applications for full liquor licenses. The first one is the Punch Bowl, which is a bar that's located at 5820 Broadway. The second is a restaurant called Spanglish, located at 6697 Broadway. And the third is Bronx Post 95 War Veterans, which is located at 3960 Orloff Avenue. And that's kind of like a Knights of Columbus type thing where they just have special occasions. So all 3 of them are for full liquor licenses. The 50th precinct stated they were unaware of any notable disturbances or complaints at any of these locations. And our committee voted unanimously to approve all of them. That's it.
Very good.
I
I
am
love
so
it when
impressed that,
everybody is unanimous.
I'm so impressed that the veterans actually put in for a liquor license, because who would tell them they can't have a drink?
Not me.
Okay.
Right.
Any questions for Ed? Comments? Okay, moving right along.
Good evening, everybody. This is the resolution from the Parks and Recreation Committee. And the background on this resolution is that, over the last few years, one of the biggest issues is it's come in front of the Parks and Recreation Committee has been the issue of motorized vehicles, primarily on the trails, particularly the Putnam Trail, but also in the Northwest Forest. And then just general concerns about homeless encampments, kind of a lack of following park rules with illegal barbecuing, large events, that after-hour noise, and double parking during the track meets, things like that. So back in October, Assembly Member Denowitz and Council Member Denowitz both sent a letter to Margaret Nelson at the Urban Park Service requesting an additional PEP command, a Parks Enforcement Patrol command that would be specifically stationed in Van Cortlandt Park. So in November, we asked the committee asked the commanding officers of the Bronx Parks Enforcement Patrol commands. There are two.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Deb. I just have to step out for 1 second. I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So we asked the commanding officers to come and to kind of explain to us more about how PEP command worked and to fill in the situation, details about what the situation is and kind of background of how they're structured and organized. Based on that, we sent a letter, me representing the committee and Laura to the Urban Park Service, requesting kind of support of the assembly member and council members' request for a PEP command. The Urban Park Service got back to us within a couple of weeks. Edwin Rodriguez contacted us and essentially said that they felt that the existing mounted patrol officers and the what's the word I'm looking for, the mounted patrol, the auxiliary patrol, and then the peace officers who who are stationed at the nature center kind of constituted additional resources that were allocated to Van Cortlandt Park. And so so we asked Stephanie and one of the commanding officers just to come back and to confirm that this was true, and whether the folks who worked at the nature center constituted kind of additional staff. We kind of determined that they didn't, and that the best course of action would be to just put everything into a resolution. And the reason the resolution is somewhat long is to just get all of the factual information down that we gathered during our investigation of this, with the intent that we would share this resolution with Community Board 7 and Community Board 12, so that the three of us can kind of speak as one voice. When I was doing some of the research into preparation for this, I noted that the PEP command, additional PEP officers, it's been on our budget priorities list for many years, but it's also been a budget priority for Community Board 7 and 12. So we were already kind of on the same page. And I believe Laura has spoken to the chairs of 7 and 12, and they're interested in this resolution as well, and in considering and discussing it. That's correct?
Correct. They're very, very excited about it. And they're going to act on it in their parks committees and beyond. So they're very happy.
So I can read the whole thing. It's a little long, or I can just skip to the therefore be it resolved. Maybe that makes the most sense, and I can go back if there's a question.
Okay.
Therefore be it resolved, Community Board 8 calls on the New York City Parks and Recreation Urban Park Service and Mayor Adams to formally recognize the need for a PEP command station in Van Cortlandt Park, and to develop a plan for a minimum of 12 officers with shifts 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And be it further resolved, the Community Board 8 calls on the New York City Parks and Recreation Urban Park Service to review the compensation of the Parks Enforcement Patrol to reduce the very high levels of attrition, which lead to open roles, inexperienced officers, and reduced morale. And the reason we're calling on the Urban Park Service and Mayor Adams is that those are the two people who decide who would make the determination of whether additional Parks Enforcement Patrol would be hired and where they would be stationed. So they're responsible for the actual allocation of the Parks Enforcement Patrol in the city. Any
Okay.
questions?
Any questions or comments? This has been a journey. It's been discussed at several parks meetings. It's been discussed with Commissioner Aponte. It started, I don't know, because I stepped out, with support letters for this from Councilman Dinowitz and some of them in Dinowitz, and it's just taken on legs. So thank you, Deb, for all the effort and work you have done on this. There's hands from David and Bob and Ed and Kelly. David?
Yes, I've got several things. I would note, I think the folks at the Nature Center are parks rangers, but I have three minor edits, but two issues. And for ease, I think we'll just do it in order. In the first whereas, I've got an issue with the last clause, and is 87.6% Black, Hispanic, or Asian. Is that suggesting that these folks are hanging out in Van Cortlandt more, or that they are in need of more service than the rest of the community, or that they are causing some of these problems? I think it's superfluous and not helpful and could cause other problems. It should be dropped.
So almost just to jump in, I'll take the as you go. With that one, you raise a really good point. Margaret reached out to me, or reached out to Laura, and it was passed on to me to Margaret Della, to that it would be helpful in this case with this clause that it's important to represent who the people are who live in this neighborhood, but to also put into context that they're in need of that the reason for this is in order to provide a safe space for them to hang out and to enjoy the park, and that it should be a safe space. So I need to create a whereas clause that kind of explains that, or kind of almost gives a kind of a vision or a mission of what it is we want to actually fix in Van Cortlandt Park, which isn't actually stated here. So to kind of bring in that unstated part. So I thought that was fair criticism, and I was.
All right, I wonder about that language, because even if that is the case, why are they more or less deserving of protection? So I think I would just drop the clause. I don't think that it actually adds value. But let's, you can think about that and decide how you want to address it. Going down to the fifth one, the last line, 3 basketball areas, 2 gas stations, and 3 public parking lots. The gas stations, I don't think are under any sort of control of parks. They're all on the Major Deegan Expressway, which is actually an interstate, is probably the responsibility of New York State DOT. So I would not include that in there. But, you can research that a little bit more. And then my next comment is an edit on the last paragraph on the bottom there, the 8th paragraph, the 3rd line, to them to focus existing officers. I would say they're all existing. I would say to focus remaining officers on parks in CB 5, 6, 10, and 11. Then on to the next page.
So Dave, just
Yes.
there. So
Sorry.
the idea was that these would be 12 new kind of net new officers, and that the current officers could then focus on community boards 5, 6, 10, and 11, and that the 12 new ones could focus more on 8, 7, and 12. That was the
Okay.
reason for existing.
Okay, I would clarify the new part. Point well taken, but I would clarify that.
Okay.
So then going on to the next page, therefore be it resolved, Mayor Adams to formally recognize, not recognized. That's a minor typo. And then I'm not real comfortable with the final be it further resolved, because we're telling them how to compensate people, how they manage their budget, how they train their people. I think we have a valid point in wanting a command there to better secure the park and improve responsiveness and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know that it's our place to talk to them, to instruct them how to compensate their people, and the inexperienced officers and reduce morale. That's my comment. And so that's it for the whole resolution. Thank you.
Okay, David, one question on recognize. You're talking about this one, right?
Well,
Or
yeah.
or is there another one? How is it supposed to be spelled?
And Mayor Adams to formally recognize, not recognized. The D is a mistake.
Oh. Oh, so can you spell it for me? I'm blanking. R-O-C.
Recognize without a D.
There's no D there.
Okay, there is
All
in mine. Sorry. This is the one that I got the other day. Maybe somebody edited it since.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, thank you, David.
Okay.
I just thought I just
Bob?
wasn't seeing it.
Bob Bender? Bob?
Yes, yeah, that same clause, Deb, back in the beginning about the minority population. I think it's too susceptible to misreading and misunderstanding. At absolute minimum, I think you would want to add something that, along the lines of an underserved population,
Right.
or a historically underserved population. But frankly, I think even better would be just to take out the reference, because I think, as I say, I think too many people are going to misunderstand it. I know what the intention was. It's an equity issue, which we've discussed in this committee and SCREE committee, and frankly, in almost every committee. But I think, as I say, it's too easily misunderstood or misread. Even with the clarification, it may not be necessary, but at minimum, it should be clarified.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
And one other thing, and with PEP, I don't have a problem. I understand the point that David's raising, but as you know, Deb, and as several other people who have served on the Parks Committee know, the biggest problem with PEP, with the Park Enforcement Police, is that it is basically a temporary job. The people who take that job because they want to work for the police department, the corrections department, or the fire department, and they are there only until they have the opportunity to take the test for those departments and get in, at which point they leave. The PEP has been historically understaffed for its entire existence, and it's because its benefits are not equal to the benefits of the other departments. So something has to be done. This is an ongoing problem, and every Parks Commissioner has acknowledged it. But until they fix it, we're going to be dealing with a PEP staff that actually does not exist to the extent to which everybody believes that it exists. So I do think it's relevant, and I do think it belongs in the resolution. Thank you.
It also,
Thank you, Bob.
we, in our budget priorities every year, practically number one is more PEP. More, this is in tune with what we've been asking for, more PEP, more pay, more value, so.
Then I would note that to look at compensation as an element to the high level of attrition, because the high level of attrition is our business. The compensation is not. So I
Right.
think we should word it accordingly.
Well, that's what it's worded with, to review the compensation to reduce the high level of attrition, which leads to open roles and experienced officers and reduced morale. That's why exactly the same thought. I had the same thought as you, that it's really like, what's the impact on us? What we're seeing is that they just go through a revolving door, and so they're never fully staffed. And then it impacts their ability to perform and their morale because they're just inexperienced.
Okay, we have several comments to go.
Yep.
So, Ed, you're on.
All right, Deb. So from a public safety perspective, when I first saw this, I got excited, and I'm still kind of excited about it. We have issues all the time coming through our committee about the parks, and as Bob mentioned, they're not NYPD, but it is some type of a presence there that can help deal with some of the issues we have on some level. So I saw in your resolution, it seems to me that this is going to come down to, I applaud all the work you've been doing and all the networking with this, but it seems like it's going to come down to Mayor Adams and the Urban, I forget their name already, but
Urban Park Service, yeah.
right, those two entities. So I'm sure some type of lobbying has to be done as far as they're concerned. And the other thing is, you know, Bob mentioned that it is kind of a stop by for people who really want to become cops and firemen. So my question would be budget. Has anybody even considered what the budget might be for this? Or because even if Mayor Adams and this other agency is sympathetic to this, they could just turn around, oh, we don't have the budget for it. And that may be the reality of the situation. So has any of this stuff well, my real question is, would be, as great as an idea as this is, how realistic do you think this is because it usually when something sounds too good to be true, it normally is. So I'm excited about this, but I question the feasibility of it at this point.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's the thing. I'm excited about it too, because it does seem to like it just makes a lot of sense in terms of all of the things we hear come through year after year after year that are perennial. And that how realistic is it? It's really about that 1% for parks funding. I think, you know, the New Yorkers for Parks has been trying to hold Adams to his campaign promise. He's already promised 1% for parks and did not deliver on it last year. So, you know, we'll be continuing to support that campaign. And we had the New Yorkers for Parks come in at the committee meeting this last month and to talk about that, because parks just needs more funding. Right now, the Urban Park Service is essentially saying no because of money. And so, you know, I think my hope is that it will help to coordinate a little bit between the community boards, so that it's not just another budget item that's kind of always there and seems kind of like a chronic complaint. Additionally, there's like been a big jump in the number of complaints, you know, 311 complaints, which is saying something considering that it's hard to report a 311 issue in the parks to begin with, particularly a park that size. So, you know, is it a slam dunk? No, like it's not like you know, we're going to point this out and they're going to immediately address it. But I do hope that with some coordination and just we do have a mayor who's interested in public safety, and that if there was ever a reason that he would give more money to parks, it would be for public safety, I think. And so I think that there's at least a good, strong case to be made. And that it seems to be pretty universally understood that the Parks Enforcement Patrol is understaffed. You know, they only have 49 people for all of the Bronx, and they're stationed, the North Command is stationed in Pelham Bay Park. So they've got to, you know, do all of Pelham Bay Park plus some of these other very large parks in addition to Van Cortlandt. So I think it's just on its face, at least it's a pretty obvious assessment that they're understaffed.
Okay.
So we'll raise it. We'll see what happens. You know,
Let's move on. Kelly.
Hi, thank you. Deb, just a couple of quick points. I do agree very strongly with Bob and David on their comments regarding the first clause in the preamble. So I would recommend that we remove that clause from the proposed adoption. My second point is in the actual resolutions themselves, recognizing that resolutions should be able to stand on their own merit without the use of the preamble. I would just recommend that in the first clause, the first resolution, that you define PEP there. And then you can
I have it here just as what PEP what it means. Do you mean I should define what it does?
Write it out, spell it, write it out. So Parks Enforcement Police in the very first clause of the resolution, not the preamble. I'm down, therefore be it resolved, the resolution itself.
You mean not in the preamble, in the, I see. So the
Mhm.
therefore be it resolved that that's where the PEP command, it should say Parks Enforcement Patrol.
It should
Command.
be
Got it.
Parks Enforcement Patrol and Mayor Adams to formally recognize the need for a Parks Enforcement Police Command.
Okay.
And in parentheses, you can put PEP.
Yep, got it.
Therefore, it's defined and it can stand on its own merit without the use of the preamble. The other comment that I have as it relates to the resolution is the very last clause, the very last resolution, I think we would do better if it was just, if the request would end at the word attrition. So remove the last, which leads to open roles and experienced officers and reduce morale, because those are conclusions. And I think that it'll be received better if we just end it there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you for your
Okay,
time.
thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Rosemary, and then. Camille.
I did just, okay, did just, I think three areas quickly. One, and I'm not sure there's an answer to it, but I am concerned about asking for 12 additional, whatever the number is, additional officers. It still has that feeling of if we get 12, not that you're making a care that we're not pulling it from someplace else, but if there are 12 new ones, we're the only ones who get the 12. I don't know how to verbalize that, but I'm concerned about that. And I'm not sure there's any way out of it in a resolution, but I am concerned about asking for 12 new and we get the 12. Number two, I happened to watch Fox 5 last night and you were on with this resolution. And unfortunately, the newscasters made it sound as though this was already approved, which was.
Yeah, it got very cut.
It was misleading at best. But at the end, they Fox 5 called the Parks Department and they put up in big letters Parks response, and the answer is no, go away. The answer is no, you're not getting, we can't afford it. So it almost this has the feel. Ed said too good to be true. This has a feeling of dead on arrival, and that troubles me. That troubles me too. We haven't voted on it, and they've already said no on TV. And so just because this is an issue that has to be dealt with, maybe just as a thought, we have a new chief of police coming in right at the 50th. They're always the best times we've had with control of issues in parks is when the police and the PEP officers work together. Is it not a good time to bring those two together for a solution? Because the Parks has already said no. I'm just gonna throw in, I threw it in many years ago. Bob Bender, you'll remember I said this to you, that when it comes to the zoo, which is a park, and it comes to New York Botanical Garden, which is a park, they have set New York City police station on both of those places. And why are we not asking for that at Van Cortlandt Park? I said that years ago. It never got brought up. Not that that's the solution, but I think the police and PEP together is maybe more doable, especially since we're getting a new commander in the 50th. That's all I have to say. Thank you. And thank you for all this work. It's a great resolution, but there you go.
Well, we have a lot of lobbying to do. We knew that Parks' response would be, and News 5 called up yesterday, real fast, and we want to do an interview, you know what I mean? We didn't advocate for that. That kind of landed in our laps. There'll be a dance, definitely. Camelia.
Yes, actually, Deborah, kudos to you for, being out there and putting it out there. Parks need more enforcement in the media. They edit it, they messed it up, but it's out there. Thank you. Back to the resolution. I fully agree with everything, David, which was kind of criticism, right? David, and Bob and Ed and Rosemary just said, I would suggest particularly the point about the demographics to remove the specifics. You can put it as an environmental justice area because then they know what it means and it's a legal designation and it's comfortable. How to say, I think I have problems with both the whereases. On the final one, frankly, I would remove, or as a compromise, what Kelly suggested, stop there at attrition, because I think we are crossing some lines here in terms of union contracts, city processes of salaries, etc., etc. I want also higher pay for everybody that has attrition, for the teachers, for the nurses, for the traffic agents, for the police. Like, so if we go that road, like we will start asking for money for everybody else, and everybody else is probably entitled to be compensated appropriately 100%. So that's just for you to consider. But however, the real point I want to add, in addition to the previous speakers, is what Ed casually mentioned, the temporary seasonal nature of the need. And you have there in the first bid resolve, a very specific ask, like Rosemary said, you want 12 new officers 24/7, 7 days a week. Excuse me, it's not true that the need is there on a January cold freezing night, February now, in the middle of the park, with the middle of July, a beautiful summer night when there are parties all over the place. No, it's not. And it feels like we are imposing them this, give me 12 positions full-time, 24/7, 7 days a week. They clearly said they don't think that this is, like they don't want additional stuff, but we feel like there is a need. But imposing them with this particular, like such a clear request, I think this is overreaching and frankly exaggerating, and it undermines actually the core message. Also, just for a like diplomatic sort of twist, I wouldn't put the word to formally, addressing the mayor and the commission to formally recognize the need of a PEP commencement, because it's not like they deny it, right? Like there were reports all over the summer about the parties and all these things. I would put it there to evaluate the need or increasing resources of PEP Command in Vancouver. Like, you see what I'm saying? Make it more loose, increasing resources, evaluate, the need, so that they plan instead of us prescribing, telling them 12 officers, 24/7, 7 days a week. But again, I do recognize that you are putting this in acknowledgement of this a budget request that has been there over and over again. And again, kudos for you for putting it out there in the media.
Great, thank you, Camelia. That's all really helpful. It's good feedback.
Okay, we have several more resolutions to go. So Marty and Sergio.
I just want to point out, and Camelia touched on it, asking for increased compensation is a collective bargaining issue. And the mayor has made it very clear that he's not bargaining with the unions now at all, because he's holding retirees responsible for the medical insurance issue. And as a result, the unions are pitting active employees against retirees. So I think that is one thing, budget is another, but seeking to use that budget for bargaining is going nowhere.
Thank you, Marty. Sergio.
Yes, I do agree with the asking for a command, not specifically asking for a number. And one point, it's the Park Enforcement Patrol. The word police is nowhere in there. I think that needs to be corrected, because that's a substantial difference that in law enforcement circles makes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, right.
But I thought it's the Parks Enforcement Patrol is what they're not the Parks Enforcement Police. I don't
Right,
believe.
but somebody was mentioning before about having something in there about a Parks Enforcement Police.
Oh, yeah, I don't have the police in here anywhere.
Okay, great. No, I just heard that spoken. I wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Sergio. Okay, Deb,
Right.
you have some
No, it's
then-
great feedback. Thank you, everybody, for all of
and-
that. I have lots of
yeah.
little edits and stuff, and I'll have
Right,
it, I'll
right,
have it back to the office. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so, we have, the SNAD resolution. Okay, thank you. Chuck? Chuck, you might be muted. Okay. Chuck? Kiri, you want to, should I text him?
Yeah, I'm gonna, I can do that, Laura.
Okay.
That's our last one, so.
Can you hang on?
Ah, here.
Can you hear me?
Yep,
I can't see you, so I don't know if you can hear me.
I could hear you. I could hear you. Yeah.
I got knocked off, that's why.
Oh.
We have a resolution on SNAD. Can you bring it up by any chance?
Yes, it is up.
Can you, I tell you what, can you move me to the next, do you have another resolution ahead of me so I can get on here?
Actually, I think this is it.
This is our last one, unless anybody has new
Will-
business or anything to talk about in the meantime.
Will you read it?
We also have procedures to talk about.
We could jump to procedures and
Yeah.
come back to you, Chuck.
Okay, I'm trying to get in and I can't.
Yeah, I was thinking of procedures as a resolution. It's not. You know what? Go sign off and come back in. Maybe that. will
Now
work.
that's what I have to do. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Marty, then you're on. Good.
Kara, can you give me control?
Sure, hold on.
Damn.
Okay, Marty, your co-host. You want me to stop sharing my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, here I am.
Okay, I have, just want to hit a couple of initial points and then go to the procedures and then get input because there's some decisions I need the executive committee to help me resolve. Back in May of 2022, we passed a resolution giving us the option of going hybrid. Doesn't say we have to, committees can make their own choice and so on. But just know the goal of Public Law Officers Law 103 is in person. They gave us this gift called hybrid, which I don't consider a gift. I consider it more onerous than it is gift wise. The procedures have been sent to the board with a cover letter asking them to consider it and to the exec last week for you to look at. And I've asked for input, not import, input. And other than the earlier stages, I have not received any input. So I'm hoping this goes through with the, excuse me, with the decisions I'm asking you to make. Hybrid is, you need to have a basic quorum in order for there to be a meeting. People can request of the chair of the board, chair of a committee, if they believe they have extraordinary circumstances, which we will get to in the procedures. But just note, it is not designed for people to continue the Zoom process. We're in a Zoom process so long as there is an emergency situation as defined by our mayor. I have no idea when that might end. At the time that it ends, all of this becomes an issue. The president said today that the end of the federal emergency will be sometime in May. I don't know if the mayor goes along with that or will continue beyond, something to think about. In order to have a hybrid meeting, we need cameras available for all participants and a screen where those who are doing telecommunication as opposed to being in person can be seen, heard, and their names displayed. At such a site, we need Wi-Fi capability. Not only do we have to have the technical capacity of a given site, the venue has to give permission for use of a telecommunication or recordings. I understand Ed has a problem with that with the 50th precinct, but that's not the issue at the moment. We'll come back to that. And then pointed out, there are only very limited venues aside from the board office where we have the capacity for volume of attendance and doing teleconferencing. Now, I bring to your attention the item I sent out, has been sent out, and I've seen this in so many versions. I don't know, I'm cross-eyed already, but I'm hoping we're all looking at the same one. I don't necessarily have to read through the entire thing. So you tell me if there's any issue you want to raise as we go along. Meetings are held in person. Now, there are two kinds of meetings, those that are in person without video conferencing capability and those that have it. So with respect to when there is no video conferencing, all participants, including members, guests, when needed, CBH staff attend in person. The venue must have sufficient space capacity to accommodate participants. And I put this in red because I want your input. The committee had come with a suggestion that if there were no teleconferencing, should we do or require audio recordings of the meeting, which will be made available to the public?
I don't know whether you want me to come back to that or whether you want me to.
No, I don't want you to do anything yet.
Okay.
I was not aware of it at the time, but apparently earlier in the year, Kira had been in contact with the legal, the office of the legal counsel for the city, and very specifically said you're not required to record meetings. And so this issue need not be an issue if nobody cares. And if nobody cares, by the time that it comes to the board next week, this will not be here. Is there anyone who thinks we should have audio recordings? So I shall remove that. Meeting is held in.
Marty, I think we should.
Okay. David, I can't see whose hands are up, but okay, David.
Sorry, me too, Camelia.
Yeah,
Bob and Rosemary and
yeah,
Sergio.
Yep, yes.
yeah.
Okay, so in that order, David's expressed himself. Bob?
Yes, yes, we should have audio recordings. I think so.
Rosemary?
I'm unmuted, right? You can hear me?
I can hear you.
God help you. Okay. Many years ago, this question was brought to this board and we voted no. The world has changed. 2 years plus of the pandemic, people are used to Zoom, used to seeing the recordings. I don't think one can go back on not having recordings. So I think it's important that we do recordings of the meetings. Yes.
And Camelia?
Yes, I just want to say that I understand the answer that you received from the council, whatever council of the, anyway, but how to say, not only that the world has changed, but we live in a highly legal environment. Community boards, even prior to pandemic, were recording, many community boards were recording their meetings, audio, some also video. I went to a great number of community boards with both audio and video recording, the old style. I would record these meetings like for my own protection, given the experiences I've experienced during this year that were overcome, thankfully. But I think there is no way back to this. Like, I would record myself proceedings if recordings are not officially done by the office of the community board. I think this is absolutely mandatory, and it's also a matter of the public having access after the actual substance, original body of the proceedings. Sorry, thank you.
David?
Yes, actually, at this point, well, in the past, it seemed difficult, but at this point, we've done scores of these recordings. They're available on our website now. And going forward, some would be available, and then apparently some not, which could lead community members to say, gee, why are you having these meetings and not recording them and making them available to the community? It's not a big lift at this point to record and put up on our webpage these recordings. So I definitely think we should.
Ed?
I just want to clarify this for myself. So is the question for an in-person meeting that we are to be required for in-person meetings to have a recording, or is it not mandatory, I suppose?
Well, the issue that comes up with the 50th precinct where they won't allow you to do a recording.
Well, the 50th precinct aside, just in general, let's say that is an outlier and that we're unable to do it because of that. But let's say any other meeting, an in-person meeting. So this would require you to record these?
And that's why we're having this discussion. The recommendation from the committee was, yes, every meeting should be recorded. And then I received from the office this response that we received. I didn't put the date in here, but early in the year, I'd say back in September, October. This question was apparently asked by Kira, and that's the response that she got. So the question is not, are we required? Because the answer is no, we're not required. But should we? And the conversation so far is that we should.
From my point of view, I would say as long as it's optional, yes, but if we're required to do it, I would be a no on that.
Lee?
Marty, clarification. The question is, should there be a recording if it's in person and everyone is in person? Or is
Yes.
it, oh, okay. I agree with what the council says. If everyone is present, you don't need a recording, but if it's a hybrid, it should be recorded.
Well, hybrid will be recorded. That's required.
Okay, so therefore then, and if it's totally virtual, then it needs to be recorded.
Deborah?
So I guess I want to clarify how it would be recorded, because I agree that in an ideal world, it would be great to have audio recordings, as long as I think we need to be a little bit better about reminding our participants that they're speaking on a recorded line, but that in a practical world where you might where we have limited wireless access at some locations, we're meeting, if we go back to meeting 100% in person, I worry that we're going to go back to the problem of not having Wi-Fi at locations where we need to, where we're having our meetings, and then we're not going to be able to record to the cloud the way we do now. So what's the intention here? How would we record these? Is there a way that's easy to record it without any wireless connection?
Can I answer this as well?
Yes.
So, Deb and everyone, just so you know, in the past, pre-pandemic, pre-Zoom, the office would give the committee chair a voice recorder. We have almost 10 of them, I'd say. And they would take it to their meeting, record their meeting, bring it back to the office because we'd have to plug it into the USB on the computer to upload it. And the files are quite large, so the only way we could share them was putting them on a thumb drive or inviting people to come listen to the tape in the office.
Right, that seems impractical, or not kind of how people are imagining this would work.
It's not, it's possible, it was done, but it's not as easy as Zoom.
I will tell you from personal experience, My daughter writes for a local paper, one of those handout papers, and she's asked my wife and I to cover a story for her. And I go with my cell phone and I record on my cell phone. And then I'm able to transmit that online. What do you call it?
Upload.
Able to transmit that as like an email to her, and then she listens to the entire program and writes her own story.
So with the iPhone and the cell phone recording, these meetings are too long. And you cannot share an email with a recording of 2 hours long. You'd have to airdrop it or upload it onto Google Drive or some sort of public cloud drive and share it that way. And I will also note, if it ever got to the point, if there was a foil and the recording is on your cell phone, you could be opening up your cell phone to a foil. So we've always tried to stay away from people recording on their cell phones and just using the voice recorders. You know, we've ordered some pretty high-tech recorders, but they still are only voice recorders, and we need to upload them onto our drive in the office.
Just note, after I transfer it to my daughter, I erased it from my phone. Foil all you want, it doesn't exist.
Can I suggest that we not try to figure out the technology now? The Division of Legal Counsel, Stephen Golden, said we are not required to do so. What we're talking about here is tasking ourselves with trying to make it possible to do so in the future. Let's drop it for now and explore the technology. I got to believe there's a way of dealing with those handheld recorders, the dictaphones, and making it possible so that they could be uploaded to our cloud account. But let's not debate that here and now. Let's explore it. There's no need to have 15 of us, 19 of us go through the technology. But it appears that by the comments that we are interested in that capability for transparency to our community.
So you're suggesting that we remove this now and amend it later?
No, I don't think that's what he's suggesting. think he's suggesting that we keep the paragraph, the sentence in, but we explore the technology later.
You can say something at the end, semicolon, it is not clear how that technology works right now.
Lisa?
Do you have comment, please?
Yeah, sorry. I mean, you're right. We don't have to discuss the technology. You record it to Zoom and then it's uploaded. So the technology is pretty easy, and we could put in a clause to the extent possible, knowing that the 50th precinct meetings might be a problem. So that's it.
May I say something?
Right.
There's a little confusion here because this is not about when a meeting is on Zoom. Because when a meeting's on Zoom, you press a button. This is only about when meetings are all in person and you have a meeting and you're not able to be on Zoom.
No, that's given. You just.
It's a given. You're not on Zoom. So that I think it's a burden for the committee chair, it could be, to have to pick up the equipment at the office and return it the next day. In order to get it within X number of days up on our website. They would have to do that, and I
Please, let's
think.
not debate all this.
No, it's
right
my
here,
turn
right
and
now.
I'm talking, David, because I think that people think that you're just against recording, and we're all for recordings, and it's all very easy right now to do it, but this might not be easy, and someone may not have a phone that allows them to do that as well. The fact is, it's not required, and perhaps we could say we recommend it, but this is putting a burden on the committee chair, possibly, to have to go and get this equipment. And, you know, I know we did discuss it. Rosemary brought that up years ago. I was a committee chair for many years. My committee did not want to have it recorded. We had minutes. That still what's permitted. This is not about Zoom at all. We're so used to Zoom. This is about when you're in a situation and there is no Zoom recording. And since it's not required, I think it's an extra burden on a committee chair.
That's why I put in, said the clause, semicolon, we will explore the technologies to see what can be done. I'm not saying that it must be done yet.
Kelly,
Thank you. I think this year in September, I was the only committee that had an in-person meeting, and we used a recorder at that meeting, and it went off without incident. And then we will run into the same issues that we have during the Zoom meetings when someone forgets to press record. Right, that's really the only issue here. And I think we are spending way too much time on a matter that is really, we're trying to be as transparent as possible and to help the community understand how we are going to operate. And I believe saying that we will have audio recordings and make them available. I'm sorry, I have to close my screen to read what's on the screen. To be available on the board's website within 5 days is not overreaching, and I think that's enough. Quite frankly, I don't think we need to discuss how we make the sausage. We just need to know that we need to make the sausage. And even if it's just one person being in the room and logging into Zoom and dropping it into the crowd, that is still a viable way of doing business. It doesn't make it a hybrid. It's just giving us another option of how we maintain our recordings.
Rosemary,
Okay, so I'm gonna go back again. We've done this already for years. The position of Community Board 8 was to record every board meeting and every executive committee meeting. The board meetings went on for 3 hours plus. Phil Friedman bought the equipment. It is amazing what it picked up. I have listened to many board meetings. It's amazing what it picked up. And it was 3 hours, 3.5 hours worth of on that tape recorder. Again, years ago, the board was asked, and I was chair, do we want to have every committee do it? It was the sense that some wanted, some didn't. And then the vote was either everybody does it or nobody does it. Okay, that's how we got off of that issue. It was a new issue that was brought up, I think, by Phil. The fact remains is the world has changed, folks. It has changed. There is an expectation out there in the community that they're going to be able to hear it without attending the meeting. We cannot deny that. We've done it for years. It is not difficult. And I just want to say that however this comes out tonight, it should not be the last person who spoke decides the issue. Okay, Madam Chair, just, whatever you want to do a vote, consensus, leave it for another day. But this issue should not be decided by the last person who spoke. Thank you.
I think we introduced this, and I think we're ready to move on. My only comment, Marty, was, where did I have it? That on the procedures, the name of the board chair needs to name the board members at the beginning of a meeting who are using extraordinary circumstances. Okay, I'm not sure if I saw that there. That was one thing I saw. But I'd like to move on now to
we're not
the
there yet, but okay. Now meetings that are held in person with video conferencing capability.
I'm sorry.
Many board members must, the whole premise is that there are in-person meetings. Again, I'm telling you that from all I've read, the gift of hybrid is no gift at all. So we're looking forward to going back to the real world where people come to meetings. The requirements under the hybrid rules is that when you do the video conferencing for a hybrid meeting, then the public has the right to participate via teleconferencing. What we are saying here is that all of our meetings, whether they are hybrid or not, if they're if they're using teleconferencing, then the public can participate. So that's a variance from what is required, but that's what it's about. And it's at the discretion of the board or committee chair, and the rules have to be consistent over time. So you can't suddenly change it. But, and it depends upon what the rules are for a particular committee. We may open the meeting up, obviously teleconferencing for an exec meeting. That does not mean the public speaks to the exec meeting because it's teleconferencing. It's the same rules that would take place if it were a totally in-person meeting. Extraordinary circumstances. They are limited. They are not designed for lots of people to be out lots of times. And so what you have, just know again, it's repeated several times here, that the priority is a quorum, and people on teleconferencing are not part of the quorum. So if there are more people teleconferencing than there are in person, then there is no official meeting. I pointed out here, unexpected circumstances. If you're requesting from a chair of the board or a chair of the committee that you have an extraordinary circumstance, it really is not, I have gone on vacation for 3 months. That's extraordinary. For me, it's extraordinary, but that does not qualify as an unexpected circumstance. Now, the issue becomes what's unexpected and how quickly you know it's unexpected. You must request pre-approval from the chair of the committee or the board as early as possible, no later than noon of the date of the meeting start time, providing the board chair committee with the reason for such request. The chair shall confirm in writing whether the request is approved. And then the chair must notify the committee board office to permit the office to maintain on file approvals and denials. Again, members who are, as required by the law, members who are approved to participate remotely under extraordinary circumstances must be seen and their full names visible all times during the meeting. Members are not approved under extraordinary. This was Lisa's idea, and I want to thank Lisa for her input in helping create this version. Members who are not approved under extraordinary circumstances prior to the meeting, guess what? They can still participate as a guest, or they can actually show up at the meeting and be part of the quorum. Minutes must list. And if we can announce, I'll add that minutes must list, and we announce at the beginning of the meeting who is participating under extraordinary circumstance. The minutes will list who those people are, but the minutes do not have to, should not indicate the circumstance for why a person has extraordinary circumstance. If it's medical, whatever the reason is, it doesn't have to be a public.
Marty, could you change that wording right there? Should not.
Need not, okay.
Because need not suggests you have the option of saying, yeah, you know, he had gallbladder surgery.
Okay, you know I'm a great typist, okay. Should not be identified.
Thank you.
Attendances and absences at board and committee meetings will be tracked and regularly reported to the borough president's office. So that after 3-4 months of fighting over the procedures, that's what the LRE committee has come up with. And I present it to you as this will now go before the board next week with the corrections, suggestions that were made. Just one other thing that I need your input on is this matter right here. I have been accused of all kinds of things during the course of these 4 months. Steve Fruit doesn't like when I use the word heresy, but I've been a heretic in not asking for a vote at the November meeting. Be that as it may, I've been accused of not being in favor of democracy because my position was the laws did not require us to have a vote on this, but merely to present it and post it so that the entire world would know what our rules are or our procedures are. But I leave that and it's my fault. The committee, I kept putting it off at the end of the meeting, and next thing I know, I had a meeting at end without having discussed this. So I now turn it to the exec for their input, your input, on whether or not you want this to be a resolution, which I will present, or just a presentation. So I put it in your hands now on this question. Anybody?
Lisa,
Yeah, it's a procedure. I think we should describe it at the board meeting and ask if there's any huge concerns, but it's a process, it's a procedure. I don't think it requires a vote. That's it.
Again, the law says we don't have to have a vote, just have to post what our procedures are.
Rosemary?
Rosemary?
Okay, without being maligned, I've never asked for a vote. I've always asked, are you going to vote it? And if it's not going to be voted, just state the reason why it's not going to be voted. I personally don't understand why it wouldn't come for a vote. But if it's not going to come for a vote, there has to be a stated reason for it.
I think Lisa just gave the reason.
I understand Lisa's reason. This is Marty and Laura saying, I choose not to bring this to the board for a vote because I don't, whatever. I have always asked the question, and the only question I've asked, is this going to come for a vote? That's all I wanted to know.
Well,
Deborah?
maybe we'll figure that one out. I see Deb's hand up. Thank you, Rosemary. Deb?
Yeah, thank you. I think we should bring it to a vote just because I think that it's best to have consent, just to prevent a future abuse. Because it's just good to have consent and buy-in to the procedures and process. That would be my vote is for voting.
Camelia?
Agreeing with Lisa, this is a procedure, and if we end up concluding that it is up for voting, then it should come as after having been approved by LRE committee. So it's an LRE committee that voted on it and refers to full board. Last LRE, some things were changing in the middle because there was no approval. So I think LRE should do it properly, meaning take it back to LRE committee with all these amendments, approve it there, and then refer it to full board. But I agree with Lisa that this is a procedure and I don't think it should be up for voting.
LRE voted, I believe, 3 in favor and 1 abstention in favor. So this is the resolution of LRE.
Yeah, but with a modification spending from then, because you didn't have the votes in the middle of LRE, Martin respectfully, and then had to reread it. So this didn't go back to LRE again, but again, technicalities.
Thank you. Ed Green?
Just ditto to what Camelia and Lisa said. It's procedural. I don't think it's necessary for it to go for a vote. That's it.
Any other comments? Okay, my personal opinion, if I may state it, is that we've never voted on procedures. It goes into the procedures guide, it gets stated. I think this is liable to change quite a bit as it gets used, because right now it's kind of up in the air. We haven't done it. We haven't had a meeting where we've had to use it. And I think it will change and evolve as and also everything on hybrid is up for to be renewed in 2024, which is not that far away. I just don't see the need for it. I think it's explained, it's adopted, but it doesn't need to be voted on. On the other hand, I really don't care. It's more the substance of what's in it that I care more about. So that's my 2 cents. Any other comments? Seeing no hands, we'll return now to Chuck. He has a resolution before.
Yeah, I just want to note first, for Camelia, we went through this issue last year with traffic and transportation. I got clearance from the Committee on Open Government. The resolution that was passed by the LRE was reviewed and input for court wordsmithing. And so this is the official resolution, and I have the authority to make these changes that were suggested today. So this is and will be presented next week as the resolution of LRE. Thank you.
Okay, Chuck,
And let
you're
me-
on.
Can
we
I
give
have,
this
can
back?
we have the resolution on the screen, please?
Yep.
Can you make that a little larger, or is it just my computer? All right. We have a problem before, that'll give you the background of this. In the past, at least under the de Blasio administration, city planning made it very clear it did not support SNAD. And at every turn of the road, we had problems. Rosemary will recall the day or the afternoon we spent over at Echo Place fighting something that was just obviously a violation of SNAD, and nobody wanted to look at it. Building department would be just as happy to do the same thing because it requires people to go out and inspect and report. That pattern has started to be included in this administration. Not in terms of an opposition to SNAD, just I have other things to do, and this isn't my priority. That can't go on. Either that or get rid of SNAD. You cannot hold out to the public the fact that you have a law and you ignore it. The fact that you're trying to support the environment, but you don't want to really enforce it. And so in order to do that, what we're trying to do is to call this now forcefully to the attention of city planning and the building department. We have had specific problems recently with both of them on this issue. Buildings could not make itself available for the February 6th meeting. City planning will be there. I must tell you my own view. This is symptomatic of government today throughout all of the community boards in the city of New York, with the exception of 1 or 2 in Manhattan. If you think about your own agency that you're on a committee or that you chair a committee, you'll find that the activity on the part of the governmental agency, with the possible exception of the building of the police department, they just don't give a damn. And this is going to lead in the not too distant future to a citywide confrontation. Either you do it or we ought to get rid of community boards. It's really honestly that simple. This resolution is focused on the SNAD aspect. We have a pattern that Bob and Dan and David Gelman took a good hard look at concerning tree removals. This has been going on up and down the community. Either because I don't like this tree in front of my house, or because I want to clear the site to go build something, which is Chevier. Does it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Once you take the tree down, you're not going to get a tree replacement in any comparable shape for 10 years. It's as simple as that. So this is an issue that is existential in terms of an environmental factor. So I have before you here, if you can scroll down, please. Let's go to the resolution, please. Now, therefore, Community Board respectfully demands the Department of Buildings modify and amend the homeowners relief program to make clear that its provisions do not apply to its duty to timely enforce SNAD by the timely issuance of violations where warranted by conduct violative of SNAD strictures, and instead ensure that the DOB, its employees, agents, forthwith comply with its lawfully mandated responsibility to enforce the provisions of the zoning ordinance by rigorously and vigorously enforcing the letter and intent of SNAD. Let me explain this one. The building department, to my surprise, joined in the enactment of it's a decree of its own. It is not a lawful regulation. It was never published. It was never noticed. It's not a statute. It's a burp, maybe. That's all it is. But in connection with that, and in enforcing that, we had a situation where somebody was violating. They wouldn't give them a violation because it turns out to be a home, a no more than two-story home. And therefore, what we'll do is send a letter, please remedy the condition. I don't know how you bring back that tree. Remedy the condition or comply. And if you haven't complied within 60 days, we'll take it to city planning. City planning will yawn. And that's the end of that. This is a specific example that came up literally the same day that Bob reported on behalf of the subcommittee or the task force on what was going on under it. Luckily, we have had a very able guy in DOB who watches when he gets a call and is told by Kira that there is a problem. He responds. He gets after them and gets an inspector out. But nothing can happen. So that's the precise purpose of that one. Number two, call upon the elected representatives from constituency in Bronx Community District number 8, we have 3 of them, to support the foregoing demands and introduce and vigorously pursue legislation effectuating such demands. Eric Dinowitz has said he will do so. So as soon as we get that part done, if the committee and the board support it, that's going to happen. Authorizing Land Use Committee to retain pro bono counsel to commence and prosecute such proceedings as may in law, equity, or otherwise compel the foregoing. I'll tell you, if Chevier does it one more time and you support this, my office will gladly be in court for an injunction, if you want me to. 4, respectfully request that Council for DOB work with the Bronx Community Board number 8 to create a procedure that permits DOB to commence on behalf of the City of New York civil cases against SNAD violators with simplified information based upon information and belief, supported by evidence, including without limitation, oral, documentary, and photographic evidence submitted by witnesses to the infraction. Why is this here? One of the problems is that the Department of Buildings, under its procedures and the procedures of oath, doesn't use photographs that it's provided with because they're not admissible under their. That's got to change, because how do we know about most of these? Most of these, a neighbor whips out his or her iPhone and takes a picture and sends it to us and says, "Look what's going on," and they can't even admit that. So the inspector gets it, tree's gone. If the guy was smart enough, hold it away right away, you'd have no proof at all that something was there at one time. This is the kind of situation. The last one was the recommendation from Bob and his group, respectfully request that the maximum penalty amount for SNAD violations be increased so as to realistically deter violations. About 10 years ago, there was a violation on a block within Fieldston by a very well connected, philanthropic family that cleaned off the trees in front of their house. And that went to court because everybody was inflamed. All of those trees equaled a $1,000 fine with everybody looking there. So this is a situation where really you are deciding by this resolution, in my opinion, whether or not we're going to have a serious SNAD or we're not. And I thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. And are there any comments on this resolution? David?
Yes, quickly. Chuck, there's one thing that's sort of missing. I mean, I agree with all the material is Paula and Sura and I effectively from different angles live right across the street from Chervier. So some morning and we hear buzzsaws going and we go outside and we see it. Who can we call to get it stopped now? Not, in 7 days.
Never going to happen unless you have serious enforcement and a serious SNAD statute. Why? Because he will tell you, Luke, I believe is even on. He will tell you that the regulations of the ones you've seen have been in front of that private house, that the homeowners regulation specifically gives them a period of time. We send them a letter and say, fix it. By the time that's done, that tree's long gone.
And there's nothing that we can put in this resolution.
That's why I want authority for the committee to have the right or the board to have the right. I don't need the right. It can come from any group you want to go into court and just get an injunction.
Okay, thank you.
Rosemary?
Oh, my goodness. Chuck, thank you for this resolution. This is an issue that has been with us for a long time. This is the single most frustrating thing with the Department of Buildings, okay? I don't know who Kira found that's a friend because none of them are friends. You cannot go to the Buildings Department and have the zoning resolution upheld or enforced. City planning does the zoning resolution. The Buildings Department interprets and enforces. That is their job. And what they've done here with the homeowners thing and with the saying that a SNAD thing is second or third level, it's not top level, we don't pay attention to it, is nothing short of dereliction of their duty. And thank you for putting this resolution out. God only knows if it will do any good, but believe me, there are no friends at the Department of Buildings. Thank you.
I know it better than most.
Bob Bender?
First of all, I certainly agree with what Rosemary just said. We had a SNAD committee, which Rosemary chaired for several years, trying to identify the problems with SNAD and address the problems with SNAD. And we didn't come to any final resolution. But what's clear, and it was Dan Paternak, David Gilman, and myself that Chuck gave us the charge to look into this issue. And it's abundantly clear, and Rosemary said it, and we all know it, it's a lack of enforcement. I mean, that is the number one problem. There simply is no meaningful enforcement. Levying a fine of $1,000 or $5,000 on properties that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, where if you remove this tree, you can save yourself $50,000 in construction expenses. A fine of a few $1,000s is not going to deter somebody from making that decision. So the lack of enforcement is problem number one, and problem number 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way up to 10. I mean, that's the issue. We have got to get enforcement. What really I think highlights the absurdity of this situation in the resolution, as Chuck points out, there's something called the Homeowners Relief Program, which gives the homeowner, as far as I'm concerned, carte blanche to remedy this situation however they choose, whenever they choose. This was most recently applied to a house that was sold on Palisade Avenue for more than $3 million. And not only was it so not only was it sold for $3 million, it was sold not to an identified person, but to an LLC, you know, which for all we know, God help us, could be George Santos. I mean, who, you know, who is this entity? And I just cannot fathom $3 million for the sale of a home and something called a homeowner relief program. Anybody who needs relief, who's just spent $3 million on a home, somebody's going to have to sit down and explain that to me. So until we get effective enforcement, this problem is going to continue. And we're going to find a time down the road where SNAD is, you know, oh yeah, I remember SNAD. That was a great program. Whatever happened to it? You know, that's what's going to happen here. So anything that moves us in the direction of calling out the problems and demanding a solution, which this resolution does, is something we really should all support. Thank you.
Camelia.
Yes, joining Bob in congratulate you, Chair Modler, in finding this nugget of additional vulnerability to the SNAD called the new homeowner whatever relief program. I think it's a perfect time to bring it up to the attention of DOB. I have a couple of sort of grammar stylistic points and then one question. So you said, now therefore Bronx Community Board number 8-1 respectfully demands, 2 calls upon, 3 authorizing the land use committee. You should put authorizes the land use committee. 4 respectfully requests, should be respectfully requests. And 5 respectfully requests again, respectfully requests again. So all in like third person. I have a question about the word that you use in number 3, where you say authorizing should be authorizes the land use committee to retain pro bono counsel to commence and prosecute such proceeding. I wonder if you meant to say and pursue, because we don't prosecute,
No, I meant
obviously. You meant prosecute? Okay. Okay. And then my question, if you would be so kind, I just don't know, is there precedent in CB8 where, how to say, because this would give you, the land use committee, but you refer to pro bono counsel, so I would assume it will be sort of through you. Is there precedent in CB8 where a committee or a committee chair is given this level of power to like prosecute, as you say, like cases? I mean, it's great that we have you, a tremendous asset in litigation and everything. I just wonder if, you see what I'm saying, if there is precedent on this, or this is sort of a first we would combat using a chair of a committee.
It isn't the chair of the committee. What I said before was it authorizes the committee to secure a pro bono counsel for a period of some 20 odd years or more. My firm has acted pro bono for this community board to go into court on cases, and we have done so many times. We went the place down the hill, the facility was nursing home, was a Hollander nursing home, was going to try and put up a huge building. Hollander was later indicted, if I recall correctly, or at least was the subject of a great deal of problems. My point is, we've done it several times. I don't seek that authorization. So let me make it very clear. It's the committee decides to do it. If the chair and the board, if the chair or anyone you want to have put in there has the power to say yes or no, that's fine with me. I don't care. But what I volunteered to do is I will go and enforce the law through the members of my firm and myself at my expense and not yours. That's the only role I want to play in that context. And if you'd like me to recuse myself, I'd be delighted. My partners would love you. So if that's the only point. There is one thing else. If you will give me your grammatical changes in writing, I can put them on there or deal with that. I do want to make a point to you, though. The $1,000 fine that I mentioned to you that happened in Fieldston on Delafield took me and my firm the better part of 3 months to get. That's a lot of court appearances. And if my friend Villaverde were around, he would tell you it ain't fun sitting in Supreme Bronx County getting them. Okay? All I'm saying to you is we need to do this, in my view. If you would like to have some other supervisory mechanism, be my guest. And if you want someone other than me to do it, my partners will give you roses and orchids, okay? I don't care. I just think it's time. And if you will suffer me for 1 minute, let me give you a very important point. This body is at a crossroads. If you do not, and I mean you, do not act within the matter of months, community boards will be there in name only, because nobody gives a damn within this administration as to what you say. Okay?
Thank you, Chuck. Okay, we're going to move on. That was our final resolution to community member issues for discussion.
Can we have a vote?
Oh, we don't vote it.
Those are resolutions. They weren't issues.
Right.
Right. So Chuck, we
We
you
don't,
heard us loud and clear. Okay, so we'll move on to committee member issues for discussion. David?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to remind everybody, it looks like, at least by looking at the agendas, that most of the standing committees addressed the 2025 budget, starting that process in January. So now in February, just a reminder to to discuss it again and commit those thoughts to anachronistically put it to paper. But actually, you may want to enter it into your computer and then distribute it amongst your committee members, in the week or two after, so that in March, you can make a preliminary prioritization, and in April, you can finalize that prioritization. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Chuck, no, is your hand up from before?
yes, no, it's now.
Okay.
David, I have a question for you and
Yes, sir.
a couple of other people here. This board at one point had a couple of really good architects on the board. And they would pick up the laboring law for the housing committee when it had an issue. They would pick up the problems for land use, etc. We don't have any on the board that I'm aware of at the moment.
No.
And it is essential we have that kind of help. Query, can we provide in the budget, assuming we have a budget to work on this, to provide that there be money for us to be able, for the board, not the chair, I'm not interested in patronage, for that board to have some resource so that we can hire architects. We
Sorry. I think it would be very complicated. And Kira, you could probably chime in on this, but I think if nothing else, it would require a large bidding process, which would slow things down so much as to make them ineffective. Kira, do you have any comments on that?
No, I can, Chuck, I can get back to you on that.
Okay. I'm not opposed, Chuck. I just wonder about the practicality. That's all.
Well, I understand that. And just if we decide we're going to do it, I will contribute if we can figure out a way of doing it to help make that budget larger. This is something that the survival of this community desperately needs.
Chuck, I'm aware that some of the colleges offer city planners. I don't know that there are architects through these programs, but we can look into it.
Will you? That'd be terrific.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, Laura. Very good.
Okay. Lee?
No, that's what I was gonna bring up, because in Manhattan, that's what we actually did. We got students, graduate students from
Pratt, I think is one.
well, no,
Columbia?
actually, I was thinking of Columbia,
Columbia, yeah.
right, because they have an architectural and planning program, and they would probably be interested. You can talk to the dean of that division.
We will pursue that.
Right, thank you.
Rosemary,
Chuck just said that there is, and there is no bar to the community board hiring an architect or an engineer, professional staff, to assist it in its duties, to assist it in fulfilling its responsibilities. The city charter says explicitly that we, within budgetary constraints, can hire professional staff and utilize their services to fulfill our duties. So there's no bar to do it, only financial.
Thank you.
the hour is moving on, and I do want to move into executive session. Camelia, last comment.
Yeah, actually, it's another question for Chair Morler, if you would be so kind. I mean, we all read Riverdale Press, and in the last week's edition, the top article basically was confirming that Tishman moved forward asking for 115.2 million in financing to HDC, and we are so fortunate to have you on board and with your role over there. But how to say, but is this a concern from as far as the community board, or do you plan to provide maybe more information at the full board? This issue has been, as you know, lingering for so long, and all of a sudden this number came up. So if you would be so kind and maybe share more information.
The most I know is that there is one planned. There is, as I have told Tishman, that I've known various of these people who've come out of HDC. I'm going to oppose this one. I'm going to vote against it because this is just wrong. You cannot continue to ignore a community the way this has happened. It's just wrong. And it's part of the whole system. I will lose. Every other vote from the city will go in favor, unquestionably. What we have going on here, without any question at all, is nobody in city government gives a damn what communities say. Look, search your own souls. Think about what you've been working on in whatever areas, whether it be Dev in Parks or in any of the other committees she's worked on. You will get people like Luke who will work with you at various levels. But the agency as a whole, they don't give a damn. This is an extension of the de Blasio policy, and it's a departure from every other administration in the city of New York.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the last item, follow-up on outstanding issues. Any hands? Okay, so then we will move into executive session. I'm making a motion to move into executive session in accordance with section 105F of the Open Meetings Law relating to personnel and employment. Is there any objection? Oh, thank you, Lisa. Is there any objection? Any abstaining? Okay, so that we are in executive committee session. Everyone who is not a member of the executive committee will be put in the waiting room. I'll give Kira a few minutes to do that. And I just want to say that everything is very confidential when we move into executive session. It's sensitive, and I trust everyone will follow that. Okay.
We're just exec, Laura, so we're good.
We're good. Okay,
So-
Just one question, are we being recorded and don't we
Oh,
have?
yes, I'm
Yeah.
pausing the.
The recording is in progress. Now the question is, because it's up to this board, whether they want to go back into executive session under Open Meetings Law 105H for proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property.
Let me just state
Wait, we
something
didn't vote
quick.
to go back in executive session. We have
Hang
to-
on a second, we may not need to.
Okay,
My question is about our process for getting real estate. That's all. So that may not require executive session,
okay.
okay? All right, let me give it a shot. I'm very concerned that we
If
lost.
you're wrong, I'll be shot, but go right
Okay,
ahead.
fine. Let me finish. I want to make this quick as possible. We had two places in mind and they fell by the wayside for a variety of reasons. We are now losing our district manager who has been instrumental in researching all of this stuff for a new place. And we're not decided on a new place. I strongly recommend that we do, just like with our district manager, that we have a search committee. 2 or 3 is fine, but we do a search committee for the new office. The district manager will probably be with us for 5 or 10 years. The new office will be with us for 10 to 30 years. It's very important. I think we should have a committee that addresses it. Yeah, it might slow things down by 3 or 4 weeks, but given our experience so far, we need to make sure this gets buttoned down well.
Thank you, David. Okay, are there any other questions or comments? If not, I want to thank everybody for their
Well,
contribution.
then, Laura, I'd like to discuss that.
No, I'm not really ready to discuss it right now, David, but thank you for putting it out there.
Well, I don't, Laura, it doesn't matter whether you're ready to discuss it. It's a topic for follow-up on an outstanding issue that I have raised. I'd like to hear what
Well,
other.
let me clarify something. Kira's role at the borough president's office. She will be and continue to be involved with this issue. We are on top of this issue. I have been on top of this issue as chair of the board. I would say I just spoke with DCAS yesterday as to exactly what is happening and where it's happening and the process. And I will report at the 14th to everybody. We have
Laura,
the fact.
I'm sorry, I interrupted. Excuse me.
All right, now I'll hear from other people. I would definitely thank you for that suggestion, but I think that everything is being handled and will continue to be handled. Bob Bender, your hand is up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I propose that we take that conversation, that suggestion under advisement for further discussion at future board meetings, particularly given the lateness of the hour.
I'm okay with that.
Chair, can I move to adjourn?
Oh, yes, you may.
Second.
Seconded?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you
Thank you.
for
Good
all
night.
your contributions. Have a good evening. Okay.